listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar where we are going to be talking about the big changes to Cognos Express in the 10.22 release. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Michael Mackey, the Chief Technology Officer here at Mindfull, and I'm going to be taking you through this webinar. So I've been using Cognos solutions for about 10 years now. I'd just like to point out that if you do have any questions during the session, just bring them into there's a chat window on the screen. So just send them through there and then we'll collect the questions and then we'll send out responses after the event. Okay, I guess the key update for Cognos Express is they've basically aligned it with the enterprise version of Cognos now. So previously you had Cognos Express as a separate offering, then you'd have Cognos TM1 and Cognos BI in the enterprise world. So what they've done is they've basically done away with the packaged Cognos Express solution as such, and basically just made it so you can install the enterprise components, and the key difference is the licensing. So that brings a number of advantages that I'll take you through during this session. So ultimately, in terms of what this means for you, the Cognos Express modules in essence stay the same. So you still have your reporter users and your planner users, but it now makes sense to probably use the enterprise terminology where you've got users of Cognos BI and users of Cognos TM1. Previously, there were terms in there such as accelerator, and IBM have essentially done away with those terms. So users are referred to as TM1 users instead of accelerator users, and the rest of the solution largely stays the same, or the terminology anyway. I guess one of the issues with Cognos Express in the past was there was quite a lag between the enterprise version of the software because it had to be packaged up and taken across to Cognos Express before you could actually use it. So maybe there was a 6-month lag behind the enterprise software, just depending on the releases. Now what this means is you've got immediate access to any of the product enhancements. So as they release features for TM1 or for BI, you've got the ability to install those releases straight away. You don't have to wait for it to come into Cognos Express now. Also, as far as support is concerned, if there's a fix that you're waiting for, or you've raised an issue through the support desk, it just allows IBM to provide fixes more easily. They don't have to be applied to enterprise first, and then they can come straight through to your solution. Ultimately, with these changes, there are some differences that just need to be understood. One of the conditions of Cognos Express was you had to install it previously on a single server instance. You've now got the ability to separate out the TM1 components and the BI components, so you can put those on 2 different servers if required. So that can work well if you've got quite intense applications, or you've got a high volume of users. Just separating out those components can improve performance. One of the other things that they've changed is you've got the ability to have more than one TM1 model instance, so you're not restricted to the single CXMD TM1 model. You can create a separate model for your HR department or another area of the business, which can be a completely isolated TM1 model now. They've essentially removed that restriction. I guess with like anything with these changes, there are some differences to the way that you'd interact with the new Cognos Express version versus the old one. And I guess one of the key ones is I've done away with that Cognos Express Manager interface. So that's no longer required. So in terms of administering the solution, you can do the administration through the TM1 and the BI administration interfaces now. So you don't have Cognos Express Manager to manage users and data sources anymore. There are just other ways to do that with the enterprise technology. And another key point is you used to, whenever you installed Cognos Express, it would install an Infomix database, and that's essentially been removed from the offering as well. So you're now free to basically run Cognos Express on any database server that you require. So you might have something called ready in your organization. You might use SQL Server or Oracle or various other database servers. You can essentially leverage those. The content store can just be installed onto those. Or if you really don't have anything available, you can install a DB2 instance as part of the Cognos Express licensing, and there's some automation around that process as well. You can also use that DB2 instance to build some staging areas and data marks for your TM1 and BI data as well under the current licensing. The automated backup and restore feature is also gone, so you just need to use your standard IT methods for backing up the data directory and backing up the Cognos content store as well. So that's just a change that you need to be aware of. And I guess one of probably the I guess most fundamental changes if you are using Advisor, so we still have a couple of clients who use the Advisor interface, that essentially is gone with the latest version of Cognos Express. So you'd need to migrate your users over to either CAFÉ, which I'm going to show you later, or some of the BI interfaces which offer similar functionality. So that's essentially been retired because there's quite a bit of overlap with the other areas of Cognos as well. Okay, just to be aware, the actual software is the same as the enterprise software, but there are some licensing restrictions which are placed on it because it's essentially the Express version, not the enterprise version. And some of these are the same as what was in Cognos Express before. Some of them are new because of new capabilities that have come along. But ultimately, you're not allowed to use some of the BI functionality. You're not allowed to use the dynamic cubes functionality, which is in Cognos BI. Dynamic cubes are for looking at very, very large data sets, so they're very much viewed as an enterprise solution. And then some of the older studios like the Analysis Studio, Query Studio, and Real-Time Monitoring, these weren't actually available in Cognos Express. Now I guess they're installed, or they can be installed by default, but your users won't have access to those under the Express licensing. It's also worth noting that basically there's a restriction that you can't connect to SAP Business Warehouse either, because that's viewed very much as an enterprise solution. So whereas the enterprise software can connect to it, the Express version can't. Finally, there's just a few other things. You've got the ability to employ TM1 and BI on a single server each, but you can't have TM1 say over 2 or 3 servers. You don't have that flexibility with the Express version. Most of our customers don't seem to need that capability anyway, but it's worth noting that you can't do that. And they've also put just a restriction, quite a high restriction on processing power. So you're limited to what they call 1600 processor value units, and that's basically a measure of server power. So in reality, each CPU core is either 50 PBU or somewhere between 50 and 120 PBU typically. So depending on what CPUs you're using in your server, you're allowed up to 32, which is ample for most clients, but you need to make sure you're not exceeding that limit with the host server that you have set up. And the restriction where you're only allowed 100 users still holds true for this version of Cognos Express. So you can license up to 100, and of those, only 50 can be pure performance management users as well. But the good news is, because it's the same technology as the enterprise version, it makes it even more straightforward to migrate from the Express version to the enterprise version, should some of your requirements fall outside of these caveats. Okay, so just to give you a quick update on what's been happening with Cognos Express BI, I guess if we look at what's new, very much there's functionality that wasn't in Cognos Express that was in Enterprise, but now it's available within the offering. And really the focus for BI is just around self-service and being able to monitor performance, whether it's financial performance or other areas of performance in your organisation. Very big focus on just metrics and scorecarding and bringing all that information to the forefront and being able to analyse that. So being able to analyse both data in Cognos and also import your own personal data, you've got capabilities to do that within the BI platform as well now. And you'll see that there's also new visualization types that are available to you as well. So with every release, the visualizations that are available get more and more advanced, and you can see that they've added in what they refer to as interactive maps into this release as well. So they can run on top of Bing Maps or Google Maps or Esri Maps, and really just allows you to associate your data with points on a map, and you can do analysis on that map, and you have everything filtered and so forth. So that's all available under your Cognos Express BI license effectively. And then the normal conformance updates have come through as well, so it'll bring you in line with current operating systems, current versions of data sources and so forth from a BI perspective. Okay, I'm just going to show you a quick demo of what Cognos BI looks like. It's not that different to what you would see in the existing version of Cognos, but I just wanted to show how some of these things present themselves. For those of you who haven't really used BI, you've got the ability to view reports on mobile devices, and these can be rich and interactive reports. So whether it's your iPad or your Android device or whatever it is, Windows device these days, you can essentially view those interactive reports. You've also got the ability to construct dashboards where you have metrics down the side. Cognos refers to these as workspaces. And you've got some focal information in the middle. So here we're doing a trend analysis, and then you might have some supplementary data here or links to other reports and so forth. You can basically build those dashboards to report off your Tier 1 data or some of your other data sources that you're using in conjunction with BI. And then you've got your stock standard row and column type reports as well, which can be produced or rendered in a variety of formats. So they can come through as web reports or PDF reports. And then ultimately you can start at the reports, and then you can drill through to the different studios and BI to basically manipulate the data and then do more detailed analysis as well. So I'm just going to flip over to my web browser, and I'll just bring this up here. I'll just log on to my demo model. So basically what I can see here is my essentially my Cognos Express BI workspace. So the capabilities are similar to what they were before. There's just some new features which are available. Down the side I've got the ability to add in my own filters. So here, this tells me, keeps track of what my dashboard's looking at, and some of these can now be defaulted to where you are at in the process. Then I've got, this panel here is essentially my launch pad, so I can use this as my home page. I can launch my reports, so whether they're those rich, interactive, active reports like I showed in the screenshot before. You can come in here, you can look at how things are performing, and then interact with these, click on different lines, and essentially see the data updated instantly. So these types of reports you can essentially view. They can be delivered to your inbox, or you can view them on your mobile phone and so forth. So they're the active interactive reports, so you've got those available to you. You've also got those row and column type reports that I showed before. So if I selected a P&L, and let's say I wanted to look at my budget for 2015, that basically just brings me up with my report. And for those of you who haven't used these BI reports before, you've got your filters along the top, similar to what you'd see in the Tier 1 interfaces, and you can obviously change what you're looking at here. So if I wanted to look at my property cost center, I can refresh it and so forth. And one of the advantages of the BI platform is you can email these reports out to people as well, so they can receive them in their inbox once a month, or maybe it's a sales report that they want to receive once a week, or so forth. So you've got those capabilities. As I go down, I've got my TM1 planning applications. So these are basically a link to my web-based planning application, so I can obviously navigate to my budgeting application if I'm doing a budget, or maybe I'm doing rolling forecasting. I can navigate to my forecasting application too. That's basically just all available through this single view. And I've also got just the key information that I want to look like. Obviously, as you're constructing these, you're tailoring these to your organisation. So along the side, I've got key metrics, which I want to monitor, and I can basically come in here and I can say, well, actually, I'm not really interested in these. Perhaps I'm only interested in net profit percentage, and I want to keep track of my debtors and creditors. And I can basically filter the dashboard for those as well and save it as my own personal version if I wanted to as well, or release it to other users as a corporate version. So I've got the ability to interact with what I've got on the screen, but ultimately I set up these dashboards and workspaces the way I want them with the Cognos BI 10.22 solution. Finally, just if I come in here, so if you look at some of the options for just changing what you're looking at, one of the things that are becoming more and more prominent are just these recommendations which are made. So looking at your data, it tells you which types of charts and tables are recommended. I might just decide, well, I actually want to look at the underlying data underneath, so I've got the ability to do that. I can change the selection in these widgets, or maybe I just want to look at a line graph. I can do that too. So I can interact with these dashboards, start to answer my own questions, and if I wanted to drill through to more detail, I can do that by bringing up the individual studios as well. So that just gives you an overview of what Cognos BI looks like in 10.22. Very much the same as before, but just some incremental features added, and it works well in conjunction with your TM1 data. We look at the Cognos Performance Management or TM1 update. I guess the key thing that they've added is the CAFÉ client, so that stands for Cognos Analysis for Excel, and this is basically an alternative to using TM1 perspectives. So you've got the ability to create what they call explorations, which are slice and dice style views in the Excel environment itself, or flex views, which are more like slices that you may have created in Accelerator or TM1 perspectives before, and really they're just for producing more sophisticated formatted reports that you might want to include in your board pack or whatever the purpose of the report is. There's also a number of other improvements. I won't go through them all, but they've brought in support for the TM1 web APIs available, so you can embed Cognos content in portals and web applications in various other areas to create applications that leverage the TM1 and BI data essentially. You've got the latest updates, so both CAFÉ and Perspectives, or previously Accelerator, can be used in conjunction with Excel 2013, and in fact TM1 can even be run on Linux these days. So if you prefer Linux and Windows, you've got that option available to you now as well. And then there's other improvements such as being able to leverage what we call BI packages. So with the Cognos BI infrastructure, you can create a link to a data source. For example, it might be Salesforce.com, and you can basically bring that data directly into TM1 now through creating the package and leveraging that package in one of your TM1 ETL processes. So you can bring that through a lot more seamlessly and refresh that on demand or overnight or whatever sort of time frame suits. You can also leverage 32-bit data sources as well. So because Cognos Express was 64-bit technology, you had to have 64-bit drivers, but they've now brought in a proxy which enables you to connect directly to 32-bit data sources if there isn't a 64-bit driver available. If you look at CAFÉ, I mean, I guess some of the key features are really that it's in Excel, so you don't have to go to Server Explorer to build reports and then go back to Excel. Some users find that quite difficult. It's really focused around the business user, making it more intuitive. But one of the key features is it's WAN optimized, so it performs well over the wide area network. So if you have clients out there in the regions, if you have users out there in the regions, they've got the ability to link up through Excel, through the CAFÉ client, and they don't receive poor performance. They receive similar to performance to what you receive if you were in the same office. There's also just other sort of improvements, just being able to roll up your data on the fly inside Excel. When you're in a CAFÉ view, you've got the ability to add your calculations into a view similar to what you could do in Excel and so forth. And top-down planning and some of these other areas have just become more accessible. But ultimately, the focus is really on providing a lower barrier for training and being able to develop content quicker and quicker. And if we look at the users that have access to the CAFÉ client, you've got most Cognos Express user groups. So the consumers are pretty much the only ones who aren't allowed to use it. Even the Cognos BI users can use it, but in a read-only capacity, and your other users have access to it as well. So if I just show you a real quick demo of what CAFÉ looks like, and then we'll essentially move on. So I've just launched Excel. You'll notice I've got a IBM Cognos menu option here. So this replaces the Accelerator one or the Perspectives one. Those are still available to you, but you've just got this option to use CAFÉ if you wanted to. And what I can do here is I can look at my content. So here, if I click on that, I can just see that I've got this side panel here. And from here, if I click on IBM Cognos Analysis, and I decide, okay, I want to select a package. So they refer to a cube as a package essentially. This will bring up my server name that I have access to. So here I'm just looking at my local TM1 models that I've got running, and I've got a model here called SmartCo, and I can come down here and I can select a cube that I want to analyze data for. So I'm going to select the income statement cube, and what that does is it brings in all my cube views. I can see them here in Excel, even my private views, and then I can also see my subsets and my selections for dimensions and so forth. What I can do from here, if I just drag out this analysis view, I can basically bring this into the Excel environment like so, and that basically produces a report for me that I can come in here and I can add in columns, and I can add in rows, and I can basically manipulate similar to what I'm doing with TM1 slices at the moment. I can change colors and so forth. You'll notice that there's one fundamental difference, and that's that there isn't formulas in the cells. So basically CAFÉ is aware of the area that the viewer operates in, and it doesn't have those GBRW formulas that you're probably so used to working with TM1 and an Accelerator. You can still get a formula reference if you click on here and go to Cognos Analysis. You can actually bring up the details of the actual underlying TM1 formula, but it's worth noting that the formulas aren't in the reports themselves. And this can be an advantage if you want to send the report to someone else to view. They won't get key errors because they don't have the Perspectives client installed. The other type of report is the crosstab or the exploration, and if I grab my analysis view and I drag it in here, this is similar to what you'd see in the cube viewer. It's just that the interface is a little bit different. I can basically see that I've got my accounts on the side, I've got my courses along the top, and here's my various title elements or selections. And what I can do is I can come in here and I can make changes. So I can say, okay, I'm interested in looking at a specific business unit, and my report updates similar to what I'd see in the view. And I can also do that dragging and dropping, but I can do that directly in Excel. So I've got this analytical capability directly in Excel without leaving Excel that I can combine with my other reports and content, which is really quite neat. And I've got some other capabilities here, so I can set up these reports or views, and I can either make it so you can select all selections, or I can actually navigate to the selection box, which is similar to what you'd see in the subset editor. I can grab all my members here and say, okay, I only want to see specific regions. Let's bring them in to have a look at and go okay. And that basically defaults these views just to look at, or to be narrowed down based on whatever data makes sense for my analysis. So I can set these up and I can actually save them as views so my users can effectively use them. I've also got I've got some interesting features here, so I can sum up things on the fly. So that basically does an ad hoc consolidation. So based on whatever I've selected in my set, so I've got all these regions that I selected, it'll give me a sum of those, which is really quite handy. And I've got access to things like my aliases, which I didn't really have access to in Excel before. So here I can go in and, maybe I've got an alias which just allows me to look at the code, or the code in the description a separate way. I can basically just come in here and I can toggle those aliases on and off. I can drill up and down like I could before. Also got the ability just to drag things in from the right hand side. So for example, I'm looking at years on the top. I may decide that I want to look at, maybe I've got a subset here with all members in it. I can just basically drag that in to manipulate my view, and that'll add the additional items that I want to look at in there. So I can drag those in. I've also got the capability to undo and redo the changes to the layout as well, which is quite neat. As well as that, I can add in custom calculations similar to what I could do in Executive Viewer. So for example, if I want to create a percentage of these two values, I can do things like that as well. I need to obviously select these things in the right order to show my percentage the right way. So as well as being able to do analysis, this client's also capable of data entry. So if I wanted to come up and I wanted to select my capital view, for example, I'm just going to overwrite this one, and I want to bring in my data. So I've got something here called capital. This is like the planning template that I use for capital expenditure. I can enter new things, so I can enter, maybe I'll call this project Y, enter 60,000. I can populate the various values. And once I'm done with this, in CAFÉ you actually have to commit your data. The good thing about this is it allows you to either save your changes or you can preview them as well. So I can come in here and I can see exactly what I've changed, just as a double check, just to make sure that that's the information that I intended changing. So I can come in here and say, okay, I've added 60K, and I've basically entered those periods. Once I've done that, that data essentially goes through and is committed. So it allows you to do data entry in here, and there's some other capabilities such as being able to derive numbers based on formulas, and you can actually have the formulas stored with the data as well, which is quite neat. Okay, so just going back to my presentation, just real quickly, if you may be asking yourself, well, when do I use perspectives, when do I use CAFÉ? I mean, the reality is CAFÉ is grown in popularity, and they're making the solution so you can already open up all your existing slices and you'll be able to use them with the CAFÉ client. There are some TM1 formulas and perspectives formulas that aren't there yet, such as DBS or DBSend formulas, so they're not effectively supported. And there's no support for active forms, but I think over time you'll see IBM closing those gaps, so you can also migrate to CAFÉ without losing any of the functionality and perspectives. But I think it is really quite a good choice for some of your business users which aren't so technical and don't need to use the TM1 Server Explorer interface. In terms of just if you are interested in migrating to Cognos Express 10.2.2, It's just worth noting that the licensing is automatic, so as soon as you install the software, that basically puts you on the current version of the licensing. It's worth planning for the changes. Obviously, you need to decide, okay, now that the Infomix database isn't available, where do I want to store my content? Do I have SQL Server instance? Do I want just to install the DB2 instance by default? So there's some options around that. And if you are using Advisor, you just need to think about how do I migrate to CAFÉ or some of the other interfaces. You've got that option as well, so it's worth considering what you want to do there. And it's worth noting that obviously the backup and restore feature and the users, that functionality has been transferred to what we call the administration functionality inside of Cognos BI. And basically you would need to do that a different way, and that might have implications. You might have to update your training material and documentation and so forth, which isn't necessarily a big drama, but just something you need to be aware of. We recommend upgrading non-production first, obviously testing the solution before moving into production, and there is a full migration process which is available through the Knowledge Center. It involves exporting some of your data and bringing it into the new Cognos 10.2.2 interface. So just to sum up, in terms of what's next, we will send out a link to the recording, and any questions that have been provided here we'll send through the chat window, we'll send answers to. And then if you are interested in what you saw here, or you want us to discuss any of this further, by all means talk to us about upgrading to 10.2.2, or talk to us about how you can best utilize some of the new features that you've seen in Cognos Express today, or some of the other things that you're thinking of doing with the technology. Obviously you can reach out to our consultants or our account managers around that as well, or even contact me directly. If you want additional resources or training, also just touch base with me as well. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this webinar, and have a great day.